Game jams, competitions where you compete with other developers to make the best game in a limited amount of time. I'm not great at making good games, but the only way to improve is to practice. I joined the 180-second mini jam, which is meant to be a 3-day jam, but I joined late, so I'd missed a few hours. But there was still plenty of time to make a game. The theme was horror, and the limitation was must contain frogs. So in my time of limited brainstorming, I decided to make a top-down shooter where you traversed random rooms, defeating enemies and collecting power-ups until you reached the boss fight at the end. After planning things out, I copied in my pygame project template, cleaned up some of the code, and got to work. The first thing I tackled was a dungeon creation system. This video by Blackthorn Prod helped me to create the system. The algorithm is quite simple because I made all the rooms the same size. It first spawns in a starting room, then it adds all the new possible room positions and where their doors should be into a queue. It then takes the first item from that queue, creates a new room, and then adds the new possible rooms and their door connections back into the queue. This repeats as many times as needed. And at the end, it trims off any doors that don't have a corresponding room. This allows me to generate many random dungeons. However, the white squares were just representations of rooms, so now I had to actually create the rooms. I quickly made this tile sprite for testing and got the room generation and room transitions working. That's actually awesome. With the dungeon generation out of the way, it was now time to create some bad guys. I still hadn't created any art, but I now had this red square that would move towards you and attack you. If you ran out of health, the game would then reset. Now we needed a way of destroying these enemies, so I made this blaster. But if I wanted to, I could just walk by all the enemies without defeating a single one. So I made the doors close until you defeated all the enemies in a room. Only then would the doors open up again. I then added the player's ammo below the health bar. I also gave enemies a chance to drop bullets upon death. I figured this would give the player more options on how to approach the game. They could play more aggressively, using the bullets dropped from other enemies to continue their spree of destruction, or more methodically, by taking good shots and targeting a single enemy at a time. I wanted to give the player a way of regaining health, so I made a health sprite and turned it into a health pickup that is also dropped from enemies upon death. As much as I liked these cute green squares, it was time to make some actual art. So I found a palette on low spec and booted up a sprite. Because the limitation was must contain a frog, and frogs live in swamps, I think, I made this swampy tile set. I can't lie, I was tight on time, so I pretty much just made one tile and copied and pasted it around to make the rest, but I think it turned out alright. I also made a spike tile and began making the main character. I first drew the character facing head on to get a sense for what it would look like. Then I drew the character in all the other directions. I quickly made a hedgehog sprite for the first enemy, some sprites for bullets, and some art for the UI. And after rearranging the tile set, I got everything into the game. Because the rooms were very boring, I wanted to have some pre-made rooms that were randomly loaded in. So I quickly made a level editor so I could make these rooms and export them as JSON files. The layout of the rooms could get very chaotic, so I added a minimap. I made the minimap colour the rooms you visited, as I thought this could help the player to not get lost. With 4.5 hours left, I decided to start working on the boss fight. I gave the boss 2 attacks, one where the boss jumped on the player, and one where the boss spawned other hedgehogs. I was really running out of time at this point, so I quickly added one more hedgehog enemy that is faster and tankier, an upgrade that increased maxed ammo, a win screen and a lose screen, a white flash whenever the player or an enemy is hit, and finally some lighting. Time to submit the game, I thought, so with 10 minutes left, I made a scuffed itch page and uploaded the game files. But when I went to save the page, I kept getting an error. I tried like 3 more times, but the same error kept popping up. This was very annoying as it meant I couldn't actually submit my game on time. But it was so late I just went to bed. Luckily, there was a way to submit the game as a late entry, so I just did that. Unsurprisingly, I didn't do great, only scoring 91st out of 94 entries. But I'm happy I got a game out. I got some good feedback. I didn't want to leave the game like this, so I made some post-jam improvements. I first made the minimap transparent because it was really annoying not being able to see anything in the top right corner. And I made it animate as you moved rooms. I mean, look at it, it's just so smooth. I also fixed the dungeon generation system because it could sometimes generate 2 rooms in the same place. I then shifted my attention to improving how the player looked and felt. I first made it so that the player actually faces the direction they're shooting or moving in. Then I added some player animations and got them into the game. I said I got them into the game. Nice. Next, I added a player outline and lastly a dash ability. I made more room templates, improved the lighting, added 3 more power-ups, a grenade, and particles for all these things. Something that I wish I had time for in the jam, but finally got to add, was an actual blaster. I made it face the cursor and gave it some recoil when shot, which I thought looked pretty nice. The next thing I did was to improve the enemy AI, because it was pretty bad. The enemies would just move towards the player, regardless of if there was a wall in their way or if they were even close to the player. To combat these issues, I added 3 things. The first thing added was breadcrumbing. The player leaves behind a trail of invisible markers that enemies can follow if they lose track of the player, which leads into the next thing I added, which was line of sight, as it allows an enemy to check whether they can see the player or not. And I used Bresenham's line algorithm for this. Enemies also only update their line of sight every 6 frames. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I thought it was worth mentioning. And the final thing I added to improve enemy AI was enraged distances. This just means enemies are only enraged when the player gets close enough to them. I made 2 more enemies, a badger and a dragonfly, then added a few more attacks to the boss fight. Finally, I added camera shake, some sound effects, and ambience. And here's the final result. So that's the tiny frog roguelike I put together. This one was a bit less technical, so let me know if you enjoyed it. I got some exciting videos in the works, so if you'd like to see more, consider subscribing. These take time to put together, so if you enjoyed this one, a thumbs up would mean a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching till the end. Peace.